Are vitamins killing Americans? You need to know the truth about this and share this with everybody that you know. I'm Dr. Robert Teal. I'm president of Doctors Research, Inc. I have a PhD in nutrition science, and I'm the first scientist since World War II to get a paper published in a major medical journal explaining why all the vitamins are better if they're real as opposed to synthetics that most people are taking. Sadly, most people, including most doctors, do not know the difference between natural and synthetic vitamins and between real vitamins found in food and those that are pretty much in most supplements. But the reality is, synthetic, commonly consumed vitamins are dangerous. In October 2011, a study involving 38,772 older women from Iowa found that women who took multivitamin, multimineral formulas actually died sooner than those who did not take them. Now, obviously, people are taking vitamins and minerals because they want to live longer, they want for health or promote better health. But people are dying sooner from taking them. And that's a pretty big study. And actually, that study found some of the more dangerous vitamins were synthetic vitamin B6, folic acid, which is synthetic, and in terms of the mineral side, it was iron, magnesium, copper, and zinc. They were all related to dying sooner. And you say, well, how can that be? Well, it can be because most people are taking vitamins and minerals in forms that are not found in food. They're not natural. They're not the way God intended them to be consumed. They're not the way people should have them. Also, in 2010, several researchers came out explaining that folic acid, which a lot of people take, seems to increase the risk for colon cancer, probably prostate cancer, and possibly breast cancer. And most people don't realize that. They think, oh, I'm taking these B50 formula and I'm getting all this stuff in it and this is really good for me. But folic acid is dangerous. It's a synthetic form of what used to be called vitamin B9. And what people do not realize is that a lot of people are taking 800, 1200, 1600 micrograms or even more of folic acid. And the human body, research found in the 20th century, can only convert 266 micrograms of folic acid into usable methylfolate. And since the recommended daily intake of folic acid is 400 micrograms or more per day, we've got a problem because the body can't convert it. And I've warned for quite a few years that this was dangerous, and now we're seeing more and more studies come out that say it is. It's more than just that. There's a UK study came out in 1998 about carotenoids and said they have potentially adverse effects. Now these are purified, isolated ones, not the ones found in foods. Then there was a study in the 2007 edition of the Journal of American Medical Association on antioxidants that found there was no evidence to support the use of antioxidant supplements to prevent mortality in healthy people or patients with various diseases. What do you mean? Antioxidants don't work? Of course antioxidants work. But antioxidant vitamins that most people take do not work. According to the PDR for nutritional supplements, the most commonly used sort of natural, but not food, form of vitamin E does not have proven antioxidant effects in human beings. But people put them in their antioxidant formulas. Ascorbic acid, which a lot of people take, does not been shown to have proven high levels of antioxidant ability in human beings. Now, in test tubes, in vitro, yeah, these things have all kinds of antioxidant effects. But in the body, the human body, your body, my body, not so much. But food vitamins do. Food nutrients do. Food nutrients are what people need. Food nutrients are safer for people, are healthier for people. There's one report here. He was basing it on some studies published in the New England Journal of Medicine, and experiments at the University of California, Berkeley, proved, quote, that taking synthetic vitamins is worse than starvation. The synthetic vitamins will kill you quicker. And I'm not advocating that people take synthetic vitamins. I think they're dangerous. I've been saying this for quite a long time. How long? Well, I started lecturing on this in the late 20th century to healthcare professionals. Then, in the year 2000, I had a paper published in a major medical journal explaining why all the vitamins are better if they're natural, they're food, as opposed to the synthetic ones that most people take. In 2001, in a holistic journal, I had published mineral salts are for plants, food complex minerals are for humans. In 2003, in Naturopathic Journal, I wrote the truth about vitamins and supplements. And people still are ignoring the truth about vitamins and supplements. Most people still think most of the vitamins they're getting are food, and they're not. There's no U.S. government definition of natural, so companies put natural all over the label. People think they're getting foods when they're not. I mentioned this one before. This is a chiropractic journal. In 2004, I had published is folic acid hazardous to your health? Because at the time I knew it was dangerous. The study had come out from the British Medical Journal explaining that there were some dangers associated with it. And I concluded that it could cause problems, and I didn't know it could cause cancer until later, but I did feel it was unsafe to consume something synthetic that the human body would not normally want. Alternative Medicine, by the way, interviewed me with my picture back in 2005 about the effects of nutrition for people with Down syndrome. And at the time I explained why food vitamins were superior to non-food vitamins, including for people with Down syndrome. I felt so strongly about that. I had a paper published also in 2005 called Can Cognitive Deterioration Associated with Down Syndrome Be Reduced? I had this published in a major medical journal. And you say, well, I can't get Down syndrome, so why would I care? Well, you should care because kids with Down syndrome start to accumulate something called advanced protein glycation end products in their brain. Actually, it starts before they're born. So while they make progress, they start to deteriorate after a certain age, after the brain starts to stop growing. Well, the same type of protein glycation end products also accumulate in the brains of those with Alzheimer's, and you may be at risk at that. Or diabetes. We have pretty much an epidemic of diabetes in the Western societies these days, and the accumulation of advanced protein glycation end products for diabetics is not just in the brain, it's in other parts of the body. It causes all kinds of complications associated with diabetes. And when I was explaining about the advantages of food nutrients, that's food vitamins and food minerals, why they are more effective in preventing the accumulation of advanced protein glycation end products. This is something that more research needs to be done on, but this is a serious problem. People should be getting food nutrients to help prevent problems, to help optimize their health, and not rely on the synthetics that most people think are supposed to work. I had a book published for healthcare professionals in 2006 explaining why food nutrients were better. It's a 380-some page book. In 2010, I co-authored a book in Europe explaining why real naturopathy involves real food nutrients and not the phony ones that a lot of so-called naturopaths in the U.S. use. The reality is food nutrients are superior, and that's what people should be doing.
Everyone pretty much knows now that we need to supplement back into our diet good vitamins. In fact, 97% of the population, according to the most recent research study, shows we're deficient in certain vitamins, if not all of them, a little bit. And in fact, there was a study done just in 2010 where they took a large group of people and they measured their blood work and the nutrients that were in them, and they found out that they needed to take in over 27,000 calories a day in order to reach the recommended daily allowance of vitamins in the body. So you'd have to consume that many calories. Well, the average American only consumes around 2,000 calories a day. That's crazy. You'd actually just blow up with the amount of calories you'd need to ensure that you got all the vitamins that you needed each day.
I'm Dr. Rob Jones from Utah Wellness Institute. Yes, take vitamins. Obviously, the food we eat today doesn't have the nutrients in it that it used to. But here's the big question. There's two groups of vitamins and minerals out there. One is synthetic, one is whole food. So let me illustrate this with a quick story. My wife and I, a couple years ago, went into a health food store. She was buying some produce, and I went into the back vitamin room, and I was just looking around, and a lady came up to me and she said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Well, I just wanted to look at your multiple vitamin mineral supplements." She said, "Well, they're around here." We went around to this aisle, 4 great big long shelves of them. So she left me, and I started pulling each one off the shelf one by one. And I'd look at it and say, synthetic, synthetic, synthetic. They were all synthetic vitamins and minerals. And so and I probably looked at a good 25 or 30 of those, and they were all synthetic. So the lady comes over to me and she says, "Are you looking for something in particular?" And I said, "Well, no, but I do have a question. These are all synthetic vitamins and minerals." And she says, "Oh, are you looking for a whole food vitamin?" I said, "Well, yeah, do you sell those here?" And she says, "Well, they're over on the other aisle." So we went over there, and down on the bottom there was 3 of them. I took the middle one, and I looked at the ingredients of it, and I said, "Okay, now that is a good vitamin mineral complex." And then it said 1 month supply, and it said $79.99. And I looked at her and I said, "Wow, that's awfully pricey." And she says, "Well, you get what you pay for." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she kind of looks this way and that way, and she says, "Well, All those over on the other aisle, they're all synthetic. They aren't going to absorb into your body very well, if at all.
These are whole food vitamins. Why they're so different compared to the chemical multivitamins out there on the market. And I'm going to stir these, and you can see that right away you don't see any white powder, you don't see any filler. And I'll do another one here. And when I mix this, you'll start to see the vibrant colors from those antioxidants that are naturally occurring. And that's telling you, even you can smell, I can smell the fruits and veggies and that natural ingredient composition within the formulations, giving you those natural antioxidants that your body is craving for. Your cells literally drink up these nutrients, the DNA from the fruits and vegetables, the superfoods that are naturally occurring, and we can see that vibrant color coming out just in water. So this can contain 85 to 95% filler per tablet, which is not good for your digestive tract, and often contains magnesium stearate. Now, magnesium stearate, we have a complete other video all about magnesium stearate, which you really need to watch as part of your training to know why we never want to have this ingredient in our vitamins or mineral supplements. You may also be familiar with the hard tablets, the multivitamins that are out there, and we can put this into a little bit of vinegar. Now, vinegar simulates our digestive juices in our stomach, and we can watch this for the next hour or so and nothing will happen. So the question is, how well is this really being absorbed into our body? It's chemically derived from petrochemicals, not something healthy that our cells recognize. Long-term studies are showing that taking these hard tablets and as well the synthetic multivitamins actually leads to cancer, which is one of the things that we all want to prevent. Now, in a capsule form, we also can get different multivitamins, maybe it's minerals, it's supplements, and if we mix this, we can see, mixing this one into water now, even if I try to mix this, I can see that it's not mixing at all. Now, the question is, how well is our body actually absorbing it? Well, the answer is probably not so much.
And she kind of looks this way and that way, and she says, well, all those over on the other aisle, they're all synthetic. They aren't going to absorb into your body very well, if at all. This, on the other hand, a whole food, is guaranteed 100% absorbable. And I looked at her and I said, well then, why do you sell all those vitamins over there? And she said, well, that's what people buy. And I said, because they don't know any better, they aren't informed, right? And she says, yeah, pretty much. And I wanted to say, you dirty dogs, you're a health food store. People come to you and trust you for good information, and you're selling them synthetic vitamins. So the idea is, very briefly, you have to know how to tell the difference, and it's really easy to tell.
Well, we know that when there's a deficiency in certain vitamins, that it can cause problems, and B12 leads to a deficiency, and it can lead to problems with cognitive thoughts and functioning in the brain, and later on to Alzheimer's and dementia. We know that vitamin C helps with the immune system. Vitamin D is important for the bones and for hormones and so on. So we know that these little deficiencies, as research shows, can cause quite a big problem. The answer? Very simple. Take in a good vitamin formula. But therein lies the problem. Most people don't understand the difference between whole food vitamins and synthetic vitamins, and that's what we really want to address today, is the difference so that you can be educated to know what you should take in when you're looking for a good vitamin supplement. Let me give you an example real quick. When we look at vitamin C, most people know vitamin C and they've heard of ascorbic acid before. And ascorbic acid is listed as vitamin C in most formulas, but in all reality, it's just a fraction of vitamin C. In order to have a complete whole vitamin C, you must also have the rutin, you might have heard of bioflavonoids before, and then also something called the J and K factor. So without the ascorbic acid, rutin, bioflavonoids, and the other factors with it, we don't have a complete vitamin C. Well, so what? Well, guess what? The research is really straightforward on this. There was one study done with over 500 people, and they showed that if they took synthetic vitamin C, just the ascorbic acid, that it actually caused a buildup in the artery walls instead of reducing it. But yet then there's other studies with foods that have vitamin C in it like cherries and oranges and so on, that actually improved the risk of heart disease and cleaned out the arteries. The difference is between having just the fraction of the vitamin C and having it from a whole food. Guess what? Have you ever thought about how they make vitamin C? Well, if on your label it says ascorbic acid, what they did is they combined corn syrup with hydrochloric acid. That combination leads to vitamin C that you buy, or most people buy in the stores today, as ascorbic acid. Do you want corn syrup mixed with hydrochloric acid that shows it actually can cause more problems than do good? Probably not. It's just about being educated. Make sure on the label it says it's from whole foods, has name of oranges or cherries or something that you know has vitamin C in it. It's that simple. The same holds true for all the other vitamins. Just make sure that they're whole food based. For example, vitamin E. If you look on your label, vitamin E is known as a tocopherol. Okay? And if you look on your label, many times it'll say alpha tocopherol. Well, that's only a fraction of vitamin E. We need the rest of the sorority. We need the beta tocopherol, the gamma tocopherol, and the delta. Without all of them, we don't make up a whole vitamin E. So, although it can get a little bit technical with some of these big words and the understanding of organic chemistry, really it's very simple for us to apply. Look to vitamins that have the name of the food or that we know are whole food cultured. It's actually that simple.
How has that helped you in your own health?
Well, in very dynamic ways, and kind of surprising actually, because I've been under the care of several different Western doctors for the last decade, and it's amazing what they didn't tell me to do and the questions that they didn't ask me about what I was doing. Right. So, long story short, a decade ago, we're actually working in Oregon at Camp Davidson, building the youth camp there, similar to what we're building here at Whispering Ponies Ranch. And I started noticing like the bottom of my feet tingling, right? And right at first I thought, well, it's a circulation problem or something? I don't know. But it kept getting worse and worse until finally it was actually like moving up my feet, right? I'm losing the feeling in my feet. So I thought, okay, I got to go in. Is this a heart thing? What is this, right? And I go in and the doctor does a few tests and he says, well, you have got diabetes. And your blood sugar is running so high, and then this is affecting, my feet and circulation, things like that. And I've got these terrible images going through my mind of people that have to get limbs cut off and stuff like that. So what do I do, right? So he puts me on some medications, a glimepiride, and really some of the lowest pill forms of these medicines. And I tried on my own to just kind of make some improvements to my diet. Not that I was really eating a lot of junky stuff, but I got more conscious about what I was eating. Little by little, the feeling starts coming back to my feet. But over time, over the next few years, they had to keep increasing. We're going to double the glimepiride now. And now we're not only do you take glimepiride, but now we're going to put you on metformin. And then eventually we're going to double the metformin. Well, then what finally happened, and I was eating great. I'm not eating junk or candy and cake and not all that stuff, right? I think I'm eating really well, right? I don't know the stuff that's in processed foods and all of that. So, but a year ago, here's where this really came to. A year ago, I go in to see my doctor, and he does a full blood spectrum on me, and I go back after, a few days or whatever. And he says, Tom, we're going to have to put you on injections, on insulin. We are just not able to control your blood sugar. And you also got these other problems, cholesterol and these different things. And I'm like, I have never ate better in my whole life. Here's an interesting point, by the way, about all this. Not one time through all three of the different doctors that I had in Oregon and then out here, 2 different doctors, not one time did they ever ask me about my diet. Not one
really?
time did they ever ask me about supplements, not anything. We're just going to keep increasing the pharmaceuticals. And now you're at a point where these pills don't work, so now we're going to start injecting you with insulin.
And this is the treatment for what a diabetic receives if they see conventional, like Western institution medicine. So he doesn't, I mean, these are experts.
So it's more like treating the symptom in the short term instead of treating the long-term problem.
Right. But he makes the point, I don't mean to interrupt, but he makes the point, he continues to accept these treatments because this is what is being offered. This is what you're told when you go in. So anyway.
Well, yeah, he's the doctor. I'm not. I'm just like, oh, wow. So, but around that same time, though, Joe, his health had deteriorated. He has diverticulosis, and it becomes diverticulitis. He's been talking about that on some of the televised programs, what led to his health crisis. And I was diagnosed at the same time as having diverticulosis. So I'm like, uh-oh, the same kind of an issue. So I started really looking at what he was doing. And Joe tells me, he says, you really need to get on some raw food supplements. Stop buying, these multivitamins from big box stores. They're not doing anything for you. In fact, they could be hurting you, right? But you need to get the real stuff, whole foods, raw foods. And so he put me on a whole supplement of that stuff around that same time. So I say to my doctor, I say, look, let's just give this 6 more months. And if in 6 months from now I've got to start injecting insulin, then I've got to do whatever I got to do, right? But let me try this. Let me just try this. And he not one time did he say, oh, yeah, these raw food supplements could have. Not one time ever. Just like, okay, well.
Get it out of your system.
Get it out of your system, and then we'll put you on insulin. I'm serious.
Wow.
Now, I'm not making this up. 6 months later, I go back and I do the full blood spectrum again. And he comes in and he's got this chart in front of him. And he says, what have you been doing? And I said, what do you mean?
What have you been up to?
What do you mean?
The doctor is asking.
Yeah, he asked. I'm serious. He asked me, what have you been doing? And this is not a kid doctor. This guy's, he's 50 or 55 or 60. He's been doing this for a lot of years.
Yeah.
He said, well, whatever you're doing, keep doing that. And I said, why? He said, your blood is perfect.
Wow.
And furthermore, your cholesterol is perfect. He said, everything on your chart is perfect. I said, you're kidding.
So the diabetes was just gone.
Well, that's what he said. He said, you're pre-diabetic. You don't have diabetes. But I said, well, because I go in and see him every 6 months, I said, let's run this another 6 months. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, right? Well, that was about a month ago. I went in. So now it's 1 year from the time he said, you have to start taking insulin injections. Again, I haven't changed my diet. I'm not exercising more than I was before. I haven't made any lifestyle changes. I'm not doing anything other than he's got me on like 10 different kinds of raw food supplements. Right? I go back in and he says, you don't have diabetes anymore. You are completely cured of diabetes. So he said, whatever you're doing, you keep doing that. Now, I would have thought, as a doctor, you would think there's also a bit of a research scientist in you that would want to say, could you get me a list of all that stuff so I can tell my other patients? But so all I can tell you is the same things that has been helping Joe, the same things that caused the corner in him to be turned, where now his testosterone is coming back up. He was diagnosed a year ago with having the liver of an 85-year-old man, right?
It was a couple of years back.
Okay, a couple of years back. 6 or 8 months later, after being on these whole food supplements, he goes in, oh, you have the liver of a 16-year-old boy.
Wow.
And it's not just that one thing. Everything else in his system is also improving day by day by day. So that's all I can tell you is it's not magic. It's not a genie out of a bottle. It's really biblical in the sense that God says, oh, and by the way, the herbs of the field are for your medicine.
Right.
And the foods that at one time were minerally rich, that are minerally depleted today because of the way we farm.
Right.
We put fertilizer all over everything to make the foods look big and healthy, but they're really deficient.
Right.
And so here's the other part of this. Yes, it does cost more money to buy raw food supplements.
It's still got to be cheaper than going into the doctor all the time, getting injections, possibly having surgery later on.
One surgery has the opportunity to cancel out, 15 years of of having saved $1 here or there on a supplement. You know what I mean?
But that's my real testimony. That's a real story from a real guy who my doctors, the Western doctors, said.
And how much weight have you lost?
Oh, and that's the other thing. I haven't been on any kind of weight loss diet, anything else like that, but I've lost about 25 pounds.
Wow.
And when Dr. Ralph was here on one of the earlier programs, I asked him after the fact, we all went to dinner, why do you think that's happening? He said, well, because when your body learns that it's not in starvation mode because you're not getting nutrition out of your foods, it stops hoarding all these fats and all this other stuff. It starts burning calories the way it should. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. It's what God made.
Yeah.
It works, right?
So how did you know which supplements to give him? Is it because your conditions were so similar, or the supplements that you gave him, is that something anybody could benefit from, or would it vary from person to person?
Most of the supplements that he's on now are supplements that would help just anyone because, as Tom mentioned, food today is so nutritionally void.
Yeah.
Not only is it nutritionally void, I know Allie Anderson gave examples of how over time big farming has meant that from one generation to go, minerals like calcium that you might have received, or magnesium that you might have received in cauliflower like 20 years ago, has depleted 20 to 30% in one generation gap because the soil is being overfarmed. But not only is it void, it's also, in large degrees, toxic if you're not washing them properly because of things like pesticides and the stuff that they spray them externally with. And all of those invisible hazards to our body, all those toxins, they enter into the body, and the body's attacking them like it would a flu virus or anything else. So you're constantly attacking the immune system. Well, when your immune system's defending itself constantly against radiation, essentially, that's incoming from our food, it doesn't prioritize healing cycles.
Right.
And it deploys things like your adrenaline to cope with a regular day, which can lead to adrenal burnout, further weakening the immune system. So most of the supplements that I put my dad on, like vitamin B in a raw food complex with B6 and B12 to help support his energy, meant that his adrenals got to take a bit of a break. He's a busy guy, and he's never going to stop, right? Well, I think we know that, right? So part of the stuff that I suggested that he start was because his path was so similar to mine. He started later in life. I did not take like he said, he thought he was eating well, even while his diabetes was slowly getting worse. I was not always responsible. I was like a lot of youth pastors out there that I see now that love the Lord. They believe they're serving Him with all their hearts. They completely take for granted, without knowledge. My people suffer for a lack of knowledge.
Right.
What they're doing to their bodies. They're young, they're resilient. They think that it's aging. Man, I must be getting older. I find that my muscles are stiff. I don't have the energy that I used to.
Or they're getting sick all the time.
Right. Eating a ton of garbage. And I don't mean, Twinkies. I mean garbage in the form of meats and foods that he thought were healthy, that were not properly raised, artificial dyes, not free of toxins, pesticides, preservatives, chickens that are hormonally treated. We've talked about that.
Right.
There's just, when you add it all up at the end of the week, if you could visualize a bowl of nothing but cancer-causing toxins, Americans are eating this stuff by the pound every week. Even the ones that are on these specialized diets that think they're doing well. If you're not careful, you can even feel a little bit fatalist about it.
Right.
Well, forget it.
Yeah, if even a salad is dangerous.
If even a salad is going to kill me, then I just... But we don't have the luxury of entering back into the matrix. Once we have the knowledge, we have no choice. For the sake of our children, for the sake of our children's genetic makeup, I'll give you one example, Tom. This will really resonate with you. All the years you've researched, human genetics and transhumanism. There's a research done that anyone can Google where it shows mice, for example. Mice that are in laboratories that are provided with whole corn, naturally raised corn, versus a genetically modified corn, will always default to the natural corn. They will refuse to eat, they look identical, but they will refuse to eat the genetically modified corn until the natural corn is removed. And only under threat of starvation do they finally, out of desperation, begin to eat the genetically modified corn. What happens? By the time these mice procreate and provide a next generation lineage, those mice have some visible, trackable signs of genetic deterioration, but it is not until the third generation of offspring that they really see a staggering boost in deficiencies, degeneration.
Wow.
An enormous number of them are born blind. And of course, mice procreate a zillion times faster than human beings.
Right.
But they make the point for me. Many of them are infertile, unable to then procreate again and have another lineage of offspring.
Well, and this is what we're seeing right now with humans. Story after story, the infertility rates are going up. The sperm counts are coming down.
Testosterone in men today is dramatically reduced from where your father was, for example. We're drinking xenoestrogens every time we pick up a plastic bottle.
Right.
It is so many things in the environment, so many things about our big farming, so many things about our commercial food supplies that if you're not proactive, you are absolutely every bite unlocking your time bomb. It may come in a different brand than the time bomb that I eventually experienced. But getting back to your question a while ago, my father was on a later in life trajectory to end up exactly as I did. Same disease. The colonoscopy that he had done revealed the same exact diverticulosis. He was right on track. But at this time, I had been very sick. I'd had my surgery. I'm well into this. I'm going through nutritional specialist training. I'm going through courses on fitness, and I'm learning a ton from holistic doctors and naturopaths and homeopaths, alternative medicines. And I'm just happy for my father because I told you, I said, you don't have to worry that this is going to lead to where I ended up. So we're gonna kill this thing before it even matters.
Yeah, so let me add to what I'd said earlier, that I too was already developing that chronic pain. I could feel it down here. I could feel it coming through into my back. The same kind of early symptomatic issues that you dealt with before it went into full-on diverticulitis. Same exact stuff.
He had his first infection that required antibiotics.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I did. That's right. He put me on antibiotics. But then again, the only change is eating raw food supplements. And now it's a year later, and that all went away. And after it went away, it never came back. And so now, I know I would say the same thing that you've said in these other programs. I would never tell somebody to stop seeing their doctor.
Right.
They should see their doctor, and their doctor may say, there ain't nothing to it. I can only tell you from my experiences that if I felt that I needed to see a Western medical doctor, I still would. But what changed my health was, and it was so simple, right? There's just certain things not to eat. I also went on the gluten-free, or I should say almost gluten-free. Every once in a while, a piece of bread just has to be consumed by me. But
that's not, I mean, you're not kidding around. Like, I don't have any recent knowledge of you eating bread.
Right, yeah. And that has made a world of difference. My higher level energy, my weight's gone down, the pain has left my stomach, my blood sugar is perfect.
Fatty liver tissue way down.
And that's all of it.
Right.
In fact, the last one, he just said, would you like to see a perfect blood spec? No, he did. He said everything in this is perfect.
Right.
And so that's 6 months ago, and then again a month ago, him saying the same thing. Whatever you're doing, you're healed. You don't have diabetes anymore.
So some of the people watching this program might even be wondering too, okay, what did you put him on?
Yeah, so what are just some basic steps? If this is just brand new to somebody, but they want to get started somehow, what are just some basic things that they can do? Some supplements or?
Sure. Well, we had to improve my father's gut health. The diverticulosis was evidence that his intestines were under duress, and there's not a lot of nerves down there.
Right.
You could be developing these mutations or these deformities in your colon and not even realize it's happening until you go in for a colonoscopy, or you have a massive gut ache that is discovered later to be an infection. But what I've learned throughout my journey to recovery, Josh, is that gut health, it's like Dr. Ralph talks about your gut tube literally being the river of life or the river of death. What you put in your mouth and swallow has everything in the world to do with your health. And they are now linking fibromyalgia, Crohn's, diverticulitis, diverticulosis, inflamed bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, ulcerative colitis, lupus, even some MS sufferers, who they are now linking a lot of the inflammation, the core inflammation in the body that brings on things like arthritis and the list that I just mentioned, can be put into remission or vastly improved through gut care. We've talked about leaky gut in other programs, and so we don't need to fully unpack that, but we had to improve my father's gut health. How do you do that? You have to improve his body's ability to absorb the nutrients that he is eating, and we have to get the inflammation down in his intestines to be able to do that. One of the most effective things, Dad, that we put you on, that I would encourage all of you immediately, go online and begin to research turmeric or curcumin. This is extracted from the curcuma longa root. And what it does several things. For one thing, it's known to fight certain cancers. I have a book at home called Curcumin, Today's Modern Miracle Supplement. It's fascinating. But what it is it lowers inflammation throughout the core. Very, very effective at lowering inflammation. People that have arthritis, that think they're improving their gut health, taking turmeric, have noticed that like anything stiff, anything cramped, anything inflamed, holy smokes, it's a reprieve from a lot of that. That will help dramatically reduce the inflammation of the intestines. Once that tissue starts to calm down, it'll start to absorb better, and it won't leak into the rest of the body, where then the body attacks those undigested food particles as it would a flu virus or a cold virus, consistently demanding of the adrenals and the immune system to fight off what it thinks is a foreign invader. Another thing that I recommended that my father start taking for inflammation and just overall immune system support is lipsomal vitamin C. It's in a liquid form, and it's different from the generic inexpensive vitamin C's that you might find at a big box store. It's highly absorbable, and it will really help fight with just whatever ails you. It's like giving the right hook to your immune system. And as I mentioned earlier, we also put him on a raw whole food vitamin B support for his adrenals. Because of how busy he is, I knew that his adrenals were probably being taxed throughout the digestive process. Digestion, people don't really feel it happening often, but it is one of the most energy demanding functions that your body is doing every day.
Oh, wow.
We also put him on a men's raw whole food multivitamin. So a lot of the things like iodine that we just don't get in food anymore, magnesium, which is one of the main ingredients you can ingest to stave off potential heart disease and hypertension. Your heart loves healthy magnesium. It needs it, and it doesn't get it in much of the food we eat anymore. So a good multivitamin for a man or a woman will be tailored to provide that body with all of the obscure things like vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin K. These are things that over a period of a couple of months, your body will slowly take from a multivitamin, build up proper levels of it in your body that we just don't get from food. I'm a firm believer that you have to take, at least at a minimum, a good, well-done, raw whole food multivitamin. You need it to build up the insufficient numbers in your body that you're probably not getting from food.
And Joe, what about the people that are sitting out there that are saying, well, what is the difference between these raw food supplements you're talking about, and why can't I just go to a big box store and get some kind of a multivitamin?
Okay, that's a good question. So the easiest way to explain it is that anything synthetic, your body is going to treat like a synthetic foreign invader. So a lot of these garbage, they're garbage.
Yeah.
In fact, they're worse than garbage. Some of like the iron supplements, we talked about this with Dr. Matthew Sams. There are calciums that do nothing but build up in your joints, furthering things like arthritis, joint pain, and more nefariously can lead to things like cysts inside your body. Your body just basically develops a cyst to put garbage that it can't absorb or do anything with in there, and now you have a mass that's developing that they put a label on. But certain irons, for example, the cheap ones where you get 200 tablets at so many milligrams for $6, they actually build up in things like the prostate and can be the guiltiest culprit of things like prostate cancers. And here you've thought, it's criminal, but here you've thought you've been doing this wonderful thing for your body. A raw whole food supplement is exactly what it sounds like. It's cultured as a bacteria, and your body receives and absorbs it exactly the way that it would a really well-done food source. So it's not treating it like a synthetic foreign invader, some manufactured in a laboratory. It's like ingesting a super ramped-up dose of vitamin E through a natural food source.
Right.
Let me give you two more examples of things. If you're out there and you have any of the issues we've talked about on this panel, or if you want help with digestive health, especially those that have a hard time staying regular, bone broth. Bone broth is one of the big number one go-tos for digestional health. Bone broth has collagen. It has micro particles of bone marrow from the animal that was used for the preparation of the bone broth, whether it be chicken or beef. You can buy powdered bone broth. You can often find powdered bone broth with things like turmeric, and then you can make your own smoothies. But bone broth is key. The collagen will help line the intestines. It soothes the intestines. It's like giving your intestines a massage. Your body loves bone broth. It loves the bone marrow. It is super healthy. The way I get it, just in case you're someone that could get away with something like this, I have a pressure cooker at home, and I have a local butcher that uses only grass-fed cattle, and he throws the shoulder bones away every week. Just going to put them in the garbage.
Right.
They're big, they're clumsy, there's no meat on them. My wife and I will get those free, essentially. I'll take them home and freeze them, and then I'll put water, a little bit of apple cider vinegar, and then I'll pressure cook it for an hour, and it just pulls out all the wonderful things that your body wants for digestion and intestinal support. And finally, I'll give you one more example. There is a game happening out there right now, and I feel that it's criminal. People suffering from digestive issues, I was one of them for a long time, that went to my local big box store for fiber relief, and I got the orange flavored, it's garbage. It's garbage. Fruit flavored fiber. Don't do this, guys. Let me explain what's happening. You have good bacteria in your gut that your body needs to break down food. Every human being, for example, has a certain amount of E. coli in their body. Well, how are we not dead, right?
Right.
It's because in your intestines you need a certain healthy amount of healthy bacteria. That is called your gut flora, the balance of bacteria in your gut. You need a certain amount of healthy bacteria to get in there and do the job that bacteria do. They help you break down the food so that then the intestine lining can absorb the nutrients from the food. You can also end up, and this is classic America, with a bad bacteria called H. pylori. Things like diet pop fuel this negative bacteria. Those begin to outnumber the good guys. I mean, we're using the simplest analogy that I can make here, but you have the good guys being completely overwhelmed by the bad guys, and then you can't digest food properly. This is, by the way, behind a lot of people that suffer from GERD or acid reflux. They have an imbalance of healthy gut bacteria in their body. One of the ways that you can slowly correct this over time, I say slowly, a few months, sometimes a year, the gut can take a long time to heal, is to correct that balance by starving out the bad guys and bolstering the good ones. This can be done through the use of probiotics, but you still need to cut out of your life things like artificial sweeteners in all of its forms. Stop using the pink stuff that you use to sweeten your iced tea. Don't drink diet pop. And getting back to my original point here, fibers. Think about this. You go to your big box store, you're struggling, your intestines are a mess, you need relief, and let's say you're struggling to be regular, so you go pick out a fruit-flavored fiber, and you turn it around, and the top will say something, like flaxseed or psyllium husks, right? 100% even sometimes. But if you read the small print, it will say artificial dyes, artificial colors, aspartame, saccharin. Those are absolutely brutal artificial sweeteners that are rocket fuel for the H. pylori bacteria in your gut that probably have a lot to do why you're suffering from acid reflux and can't digest food.
Oh, wow.
How can I drink all the water that how can I drink a gallon a day and even mix in vegetables? And how is it possible that I'm still struggling with regularity?
Right.
If you're using those artificial sweetened-based fibers for relief, you're probably just constantly counterbalancing anything. And what's worse is the artificial sweeteners also cross over the blood-brain barrier,
right.
Which Ali Anderson did a wonderful job talking about on one of the other programs that we've done for the Time Bond Project. So if you're looking for help, if you need some digestive support and you need some support with regularity, the absolute most effective, non-addictive That's the other caveat to the artificial sweeteners, is very addictive. And they have a point of diminished returns. I remember taking my orange fiber, and I remember that 2 scoops didn't work anymore. 6 months later, I need 3 scoops.
You had to keep increasing and increasing.
Until one day, my life is I just take orange stuff all day. So anyway, point is, most natural markets, most of the natural grocers, places like that, or you can order online if you wish to, but you just need basic psyllium husks, totally organic psyllium husks. Psyllium husks are a derivative of the Plantago ovata plant.
Okay.
And most of the time they're from India, and they're imported in. But when they're not added to by artificial sweeteners, colors, dyes, this is supposed to taste like a blueberry or whatever, just in their raw form, I buy them bulk. And I recommend anybody that needs digestive support to buy them in bulk. That's why I mentioned the holistic natural type markets. You can usually get them right where you'd find granola or pumpkin seeds or anything else in these big vats with scoops and so forth.
Right.
But I buy, and cheap. You can get a huge bag for about $7.
Oh, that's not bad.
Way cheaper. Non-addictive, super effective, super healthy, and your gut will thank you.